Okay, so I know Noella's showing up. Very nice. All right, so hello, welcome everyone. I've got the screencast going and I'm just about to begin the Educreations recording. All right, so I got the Educreations recording going now too, and we're going full screen. Fantastic. And yeah, already checked the mic to make sure everyone can hear me. Jam-packed lesson tonight. This is all about the flower of life, the Merkaba, and the flying rainbow lasagna. Flying rainbow lasagna is original material. This is something that I invented, created, developed, and teach about. But the Merkaba and the flower of life are ancient concepts. This is information that actually comes to us from the ancient Egyptian mystery schools, which were an outgrowth of the antediluvian culture that is known as Atlantis or Lemuria. And basically, this is your energetic anatomy. So one of the amazing things is that before I even knew about what the Merkaba was, I was feeling and envisioning this energy field around me. And that's like if you are just an intuitive runner or an intuitive painter. And it's wonderful to just create your own way of doing things, and it's amazing what kind of cultivation can happen when you are able to access information from people who already have had their experiences, so you do not have to constantly reinvent the wheel, and you might even find that there is social support from other people around you. So yes, big validation in that I was doing the visualization. So basically this is what this is all about. The Merkaba is an energy field that you create around your body by visualizing it using your pineal gland, which is your imagination and also the apparatus with which you use to project reality. This is such powerful information that I'm kind of happy that right now the only people that are in the chat room are people who are students of the class or formally enrolled and who have done the other lessons, because really I will tell you that when I have been releasing blurbs about the Merkaba and I put it up on Facebook, sometimes my hyperdimensional guides will look at me very sternly like, hey, what's going on here? Because this is like dynamite. This is like, information that can be considered very powerful and dangerous, not in the wrong hands, but if it is used unwisely. So we've been going through a whole half semester. We've done 10 lessons, and a great deal of it has been about the necessity of cultivating unconditional love, bringing your energy up to that level of total acceptance and peace and non-judgment, so that when you begin to create and manifest, you do so from the stance of a person who has wisdom. And I have described myself in the past as a cosmic teenager or a cosmic adolescent, because being a walk-in, I'm roughly 13 or 14 years old. And that means that I, like many teenagers, have a desire to, be independent. I want to drive the car, right? Driving the car is analogous to, and I just want to move this out a little bit so you can see me and the screen a little bit better. Driving the car is analogous to driving your life. So this has everything to do with the divine co-creative partnership that we are all engaged in with, let's say, the exterior universe or the greater universe. We're a part of it, it's creating, and we are creating, and ideally we are creating harmoniously. That's what the Merkaba shape is all about. So let me begin and take a little bit of, first, this is a sketch that I did. This is a drawing in order to show you, and I hope that you can see it back there, but remember, all of these are recorded and you can access them later. This is the Merkaba field around a seated individual. And I'm a female, so this is like drawing, if I were to draw human anatomy, I would draw female human anatomy because that's what I'm familiar with. I draw the Merkaba like this. It's interesting, in a video presentation on YouTube, one of the comments was about what is the male version of the Merkaba. So apparently others perceive it differently, and I will not dictate to you how you need to do it. I will simply tell you, like as an artist, I hold my paintbrush like this, and these are the results that I achieve. So this is the face front version of this, and I also have another one I want to call up and show to you. Where did that just go? So you can see this one is a slightly profile version. And I begin with my Merkaba meditation, sitting like this with my legs folded, quote unquote Indian style, and use the basis of my body to form a pyramid. So, okay, I'll also tell you this. I know that I sent out the recorded lessons, and there's a question. I'll get to that question in a minute. I sent out the recorded lessons yesterday or the day before, so you didn't have a lot of chance to be able to watch them. After this, if you haven't been to the recorded lessons, watch lesson 11, because there's a lot of drawing, there's a lot of detail, there's probably more detail in it than you can see back here, and I'm also focusing on the camera and speaking, so I'm not necessarily doing all the detailed drawings. Check out the recorded lessons, because also there's only so much that I can get through in a lecture, but I have a lot of information and specifics recorded there in case I don't get to all of this. Because using the Merkaba is just like programming your computer or doing anything with a recipe. It involves doing things in the correct order, using the right ingredients, following the right steps. So again, like I could figure out how to make bread on my own, and I can also consult a recipe that has been developed over thousands of years that others have used. So initially I started out as a very intuitive user of the Merkaba, and then eventually I read about others. Drunvalo Melchizedek is a teacher of note who's worth looking into, and he is really the person who started people popularizing the information with people of the flower of life. This, however, is not original to Drunvalo. He says that he presents it as information gleaned from masters of the past. And that's accurate because this is found in many ancient cultures. It's in different rock carvings, it's in different religious depictions or spiritual or metaphysical texts. And this is a very important shape of sacred geometry, and it is not the only thing that's going on. So what I'm bringing to you here today is also a caveat. Beware, beware, because what's going on right now in, whatever, the new age community or whatever you would like to say, there's a lot of information that is coming out, but you have to be you have to consider the sources and understand that not everybody is a completely clear conduit, and that the information that some people are presenting, instead of presenting things in a way that sets you free, is actually just another bar on the mental cage. So my intention is to clarify a lot of this in order to give you those, mental freedom, what you need to spread your wings and really fly. Flower of Life is the 6-petaled shape, and I'm just going to tick this off very fast so that you can see. Here's a color that you can see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6. It's based on hexagons. It's based on equilateral triangles. It is the same exact shape that snowflakes are in, that carbon atoms are in. Hey guys, want to see some carbon atoms? Because I got some ready to show you. That's this right over here. Let's switch around. So I hope you can see this. I'm going to blow it up giant. You can see that pretty well. This is interesting stuff. This down here, this is a carbon nanotubule. This is a new formation of carbon. It's like saying Legos have already been invented, but we've now taken Legos and built something completely new and different with them. Well, carbon was invented a long, long time ago, but scientists have found a new way to put it together into these amazing, basically 1-atom diameter microtubules that have all of these interesting properties. But I bring up this little diagram that it's not my material, I didn't draw this diagram, in order to show you that this is all based on hexagons. The shape of carbon is hexagonal, and the shape of water is hexagonal. And guess what? A lot of your physical body is made up of carbon and water, and a lot of the world that we see around us is made up of carbon and water. However, that's not the only aspect of reality that we are here to explore and learn about, right? Like I've been here telling you at great length about the other aspects of non-physical reality. And the non-physical reality is represented by your chakras, which are actually based in cubes and are actually have this octahedral pattern to them. So in the recorded lesson, I get into exactly how to turn this hexagon into an octahedron. Understand that these are one of the crucial connecting points or integuments of understanding. And what I'm really giving you is the mental filter through which to perceive a higher reality. So in the recorded lesson, I talk about this. I talk about the Renaissance and art. Before the Renaissance, artwork was depicted as flat, not as something that depicts space, like three-dimensional space. In this time and place, everybody is very well versed with the idea that when I present you with a piece of paper or a screen, that you are meant to look through it as if you are looking through a window. Well, that was a radical concept in the Dark Ages. That think of a time when people never saw the written word, where people had very little access to anything that was printed or painted, and life was very, very two-dimensional. People did not have the concept of looking at a page and understanding that it was meant to represent a room. And it was not until the invention of perspective in the Renaissance where artists used tricks of the trade. This is what we do. Like, I drew this painting, this picture that you see behind you here, this pencil sketch. I drew it on a flat piece of paper. But when you look at it, you interpret these lines to understand that it is a pyramid that I'm drawing. That is a huge leap of consciousness. That leap of consciousness comes over, more than 1,000 years of social and cultural conditioning. Now, even like a little tiny child, if you show them a phone, they understand you're not looking at a flat screen, you're looking into it like it's a window and there's a whole world inside of there. Well, that same perceptual leap is what you will be asked to make in terms of using the Merkaba as an interdimensional vehicle. And you must also understand that the flower of life is not a flat object. All right, it's presented in all of these different things. There's earrings of the flower of life. It's in posters. It's on yoga pants. You'll see this everywhere. But the issue is, remember I said before in the previous class about how you have a genetic pattern that's been squashed, it's been flattened out. Literally, you don't have higher dimensional faculties because the higher dimensions got squashed together. This is the same type of mental conditioning. It is information being released, but not in a helpful manner, because people look at this shape and they revere it. This is only part of the picture. I got another really good diagram to show you. Ooh, scoot this aside and scoot this in the front. I didn't draw this either, but it's pretty cool, and I hope you can see it, and if not, you can check it out later. It is on this row over here is photographs of cells. This row over here is diagrams of cells, and this row over here are line drawings, and I'm going to maximize it so you can see it the most possible. You start off with, there we go, you can see it. So you start off with over here. That's one cell, all right? Then this is two cells, and you see it's divided and made that lovely vesica piscis. The vesica piscis is this, I would call it a lobe shape. It is also representative of the divine feminine, the divine, the source, the womb, the source of divine femininity. Look, here's a bunch of vesica piscis shapes right here. And when you divide again, you begin to see, you get to this formation, and then when you divide one more time, and I'll maximize it so you can see it the most, look at that, amazing, you get the flower of life. These are the building blocks of your cellular body. But don't get taken in by objective materialism that says the physical realm is all that we see around us. You know, I know. I've been telling you all about how we exist within a whole sea of vibrations, this other hyperspace realm that informs and interpenetrates the cellular physical realm. So this class, this lesson in this class is all about reconciling those two worlds. You've got a world that's built upon the flower of life, the world of physical, cellular, juicy life. And you've got a different realm that is built upon these octagonal lobe shapes, that's built upon this. This is a cube shape. How do we integrate those two matrices? Because one is built on 90-degree angles, one is built on 60-degree angles. One is built on triangles, one is built on cubes and squares. And the answer to that lies in our binocular vision. So, blah, 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 but before I just get too far afield, Drunvalo, good source of information, but don't idolize the flower of life because it's not the end of the story. It is only the pattern that dictates what's going on in the physical cellular realm. And because I just showed you that, let me just take a moment to show you this. This is a detail from a drawing that I did. And so you can see in the center, you've got that 6-petaled flower of life, all right? And we showed you how you arrive at that in a cellular sense. And now I'm going to just minimize that a little bit and draw on top of this. You might not be able to see it on your screen at home, but you'll see it on the Educreations. This also has all of the chakras drawn in it. And this is part of a finished painting that is currently hanging in my studio. Here, just doing a very rough outlining of these chakra shapes. But now you can begin to see, oh, look at that. That's the hourglass that is at the center of every torus. And we would say a torus or a donut is half of one of these, and this is a chakra shape. And the chakra shape creates this negative space. Boom, 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 boom. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then of course on the other side I also have 4. And that's why this sculpture right here has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4 on the other side. And the bridge, the perceptual bridge between this shape, which is the shape of your time body, the shape of your consciousness, of your 5th dimensional and higher vibratory body, this shape, so right now you can kind of see, I know it's a little bit bent, but it is pretty much cube shaped. It is pretty much like, here's side, top, bottom, front, back, side, all right? It's shaped pretty much like a cube. But if I turn it in just the right way and we let the camera do its job, you will begin to see this as a flower of life. There we go. Oops. Make its little thing go just right. Okay, now we point to it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this little guy is sticking out into the foreground, right? But let's say that we don't acknowledge a higher dimension. Then this guy doesn't exist. We like take him off the surface, and then all that you see are and there's another guy sticking out back here that we would also take off. It's essentially like saying when you look at the flower of life and you look at that flat design, you have taken off this guy and this guy. You took off these two guys, you cut them off, and you didn't look at them and acknowledge them. So anyway, this has everything to do with humanity being programmed to look at the world in a flattened way, and I am here to pop you forward into a higher dimensional reality because the Merkaba is a very essential tool that you can use. So let's talk about what type of tool it is. It is very similar to a program, a computer, in that you can program it because it is intelligent and self-aware and conscious. So you can program it to do what you need to do. When you first start out using the Merkaba, what you should do is first just practice being able to visualize it and not actually activate it. Just like before you decide to go out and run a marathon, you should run around the block a few times, okay? Because this is a machine for manifestation in exactly the same way that your insight, your pineal gland, your imagination is a machine for manifestation. But one of the challenges is that mostly people's pineal glands are unprotected. So that means that there are all of these negative and unwanted, deleterious forces that are putting their undue influence on you when you're manifesting reality. So you wouldn't manifest all of these things if it weren't for something else reaching in there and putting those thoughts in. And then the things that you are manifesting are not what you want. And you look at the world and you say, why is the world such a piece of crap? And it's not your fault because you don't have this protective field. So as we begin to become cosmic teenagers, before you hop in the car, you get your learner's permit and you drive under guidance and you practice. So it is essential to begin little practice flights of the Merkaba. And the first thing is you begin to envision it. And also I urge you to draw it, because we really learn in a tactile and kinetic sense by drawing, and it reaches a deeper level than merely the intellectual sense of looking at something with your eye. When I sit in the Merkaba, I begin with the pyramid. And the pyramid is not the Great Pyramid of Giza, which actually has a square base. It's a pyramid that is a tetrahedron, or a four-sided pyramid. So where I'm sitting, you know, my legs stick out in a V, and then there's a flat face in front of me. That is a perfect beginning visualization for the foundation of the pyramid. And we have two pyramids, one that faces up and one that faces down. And I'm not very much one for duality. I do not really want to incept that concept in everyone who's here. And since we have two different facing directions, there are two different approaches to each pyramid. And one is very specific, very analytical, very linear. One is very receptive, very non-specific. And it is the interplay of these two forces that really creates reality. I use dessert as an example. If I wanted to use my Merkaba to manifest dessert, I would sit down, and in my upward-facing pyramid, I would put very specific requests. I want Cherry Garcia ice cream, and it has to be in a blue dish, and it has to be eaten with a silver spoon, and I want it on Tuesday night. And in the downward-facing pyramid, think of the receptivity of a cup or a vessel. The downward-facing pyramid also faces Earth and the planet upon which you stand. And it is a request, or a stance of being receptive, where you say to the universe and to the planet, I'd like to eat something good, something sweet, something creamy, something that's a treat. And you allow a little bit of dealer's choice or input from the chef, because, okay, so first you make your requests, and I say that you should have both specific requests and non-specific requests, because let's say this. Let's say that you go to one of these really shishi restaurants where, you know, they have fancy food on the menu, and if you order what's specifically written on the menu, you might not get the best thing that night. You might get the best thing if you allow the chef to express his or her, you know, divine innate connection through their food. And so by giving the chef their own discretion, you will get a higher quality experience. It's the same way with the universe and with manifestation. You know, sometimes you can be so specific. I want this flavor thing, or I want to live in this place, or I want to marry this specific person, or I want to have this type of dog, and you don't understand that your dream husband, house, career, or dessert might be something else, and you might not be aware of it, so you cannot wish for it specifically. This is about wish crafting, not witchcraft, but wish as in desire. You craft your wishes. And I make rough sketches, just like before I do a painting, I make a rough sketch. I don't get that committed to it, because you want to say, what would this be like? And then the key is, after you have put your desires into your Merkaba and you've programmed it, you then must visualize the two fields of energy rotating. And so one is sticking out from my chest, and you can see that is sticking forward here, out from the heart chakra, the receptive one. I begin that one spinning around to my left. And the one that is sticking out behind me, behind the base of my spine, I begin that one swinging around to the right. And it eventually, it's almost like it's an innate feeling. You will develop the feeling of it, but don't be concerned if you don't get it right away. Even if you don't know all the dance steps, bop along, because the universe will teach you. It's just like learning anything. If you are a musician, you know you don't pick up the violin and be a virtuoso. You have to play a little bit and make some sour notes in order to get the feel of it. We have learner's permits, all right? You have permission to use the Merkaba to learn within a protected space. And of course, I can give funny examples of, times when I used the Merkaba, when I grabbed the car keys when I was too young to drive, and I used it to manifest things out of anger or, from the wrong direction. And what happened was, it's a divinely benevolent universe. I sat down in my Merkaba and I'm like, I'm going to manifest what I want. And I got what I want, but with comic literalness. The universe responded to the letter of what I wanted. And I wasn't able to actually utilize what it sent me because it was so literal. And it was kind of like saying, Aurora, be a good girl. Don't manifest out of anger. Don't just grab the car keys and, run off in a huff. Do this in the right way. And that was several years ago. And so now, before I sit down to do this, I examine my motives. I examine why I'm feeling this way. If I'm just feeling generally edgy, and uncomfortable, I try not to put that into my Merkaba program. Or if I am programming the Merkaba, I feel edgy and uncomfortable, I can say, I'm feeling edgy and uncomfortable because I need this thing to happen, or I have this need that needs to be met. So, it helps to explain that. It's like if you're on stage and you're feeling nervous and you say to the audience, I'm feeling a little nervous, and that kind of wins them over. They kind of understand that. So when you begin your fields rotating or counter-rotating, that's like pressing run. If I were to use the analogy of a computer, you're a computer programmer, you type in everything, you go through with a fine-tooth comb to say, is this what I really want to happen? And then at the very end, you press run. That's what happens when you get your fields counter-rotating. And when you get those fields counter-rotating, it's like you begin to manifest that experience in reality. And then you get up out of the meditation. It's still rotating, it's still going, but you don't have to constantly be pressing the run button. The computer's running, it's doing it. So you're now part of the universal computer. And you are a meta programmer. Meta means overarching. So meta programmer means you are now involved in the program that creates the program of your daily existence. That's a pretty powerful position to be in. That's why this information should go to people who are responsible people, who are interested in being good drivers and using this information properly. So, Merkaba can be used as a machine for manifestation. Merkaba can also be used as a protective mechanism. If you envision a large one or a very tiny one around your pineal gland, it acts as a shield in order to shield out the negative, lower vibrational service to self thought entities that have been pretty much feeding off of you since early childhood. This is amazing, guys. This is like saying you don't have to get your ass kicked by demons all day long, every day anymore. Woohoo! Not that great to understand that that's what's been going on. And I say this too, like, anytime you've got an addiction or an obsession, anytime you're not in control of your behavior, like you're getting your ass kicked by demons, this really helps. I share this information with people also who say that they are having problems with either unwanted energy attacks or psychic vampires, or it's basic. This information should be taught to people like toilet training, like how you wipe your ass and how to create the Merkaba, because this is essential information about how to navigate reality. So this can be used as a protective shield, because you can envision, here I have this lovely little amethyst. I hope you can see it, and I hope the lighting is good enough for you to be able to see it. You can see it in profile. So this is a 3-dimensional little carved piece of amethyst. And the whole idea is that, if you have these shiny, flat faces, you can see how they're kind of reflecting the light. If you have these unwanted negative thought entities that are trying to beam energy at you, that these rotating fields act like mirrors and are able to deflect what you don't want to be coming into you. And at the same time, the vertexes, the places where the edges come together, those are receptive areas where loving beings can come in there. So essentially, when you envision the Merkaba properly, and I have all the steps in the recorded lessons of exactly how to do it, you are creating a protective energy field that keeps out non-loving entities and allows loving entities to come in. And this is essentially, you know, the goal of what we all want to be doing. So you got to give me a few minutes. I'm going to stop the Educreations recording here and save it, and then I got to get back to my pictures. So, but while we do that, I'll be talking and telling you about things because this is still recording. Okay, so manifesting, protection, and also interdimensional travel. And this is really important because the interdimensional travel part is for experts only. It is not for the novice. It's like driving across the country, you know, like if you're a novice driver, it's not appropriate to be like, okay, like you're 17 years old and you just got your license, you know, here's the car keys, drive across the country, have a good time. Like that's not appropriate at all. That's the equivalent of interdimensional travel. Like you have to know where you're going, you have to have a plan, you have to know a lot of different things in order to successfully interdimensionally travel. So it is the type of thing that is for advanced, it is the advanced use of the Merkaba. Just pulling up these things. And then I'll pull up a few other interesting things that you can look at. Okay, good. Good, that didn't take that long. Back to the recording. Okay, interdimensional travel. The way that we use the Merkaba for interdimensional travel goes back to the Renaissance and the invention of perspective. It has everything to do with you using your system of perception to add another dimension. Hey, doesn't that sound like something I talk about all the time? Like taking this shape and adding another dimension and turning it into this shape. So I've already gone through this, and it's in the recorded lesson too, but this is one chakra, which has, you know, one hourglass shape like this and one like this. So a Merkaba is basically half of one of these chakras. Hey, I'll show you a picture. Oh, hold on a second. All right, this thing is paused. Hold on a second. I know I get so excited I have to find my pictures. Hold on. Yeah, Here we go. Great. There we go, recording again. This is, and I'll super bring it up, this is the sister to the other drawing that I showed you, and it's now a completed painting. And what you can see in here, if I highlight this, we've got, we've got the full two hourglasses. So I did the 1 hourglass in the first part of this episode. Here's the other hourglass. This is what this painting looks like that. That is the two-dimensional version of this, right? So now let me erase everything I just drew and zoom back out again so you can see what this looks like from the outer portion. There we go. I guess that's a little bit better. You can see all of these guys around here. This is all the Merkaba around here. That's one. You can clearly see that, but then we have another one that is at 90-degree angles to it because we have essentially the full chakra. So that's what that ends up looking like. So this right here, this little carved shape, this is only half of a chakra. A Merkaba that is like this is only half of a chakra. Now let me go back. So what I'm showing you with these pictures of these people here, is only half of their chakra. And of course, now as students ask me, Aurora, please draw the full picture. Believe me, guys, I got a long list of expository diagrams that I need to draw. This is actually part of the advanced material. So in this initiatory level, I teach people about the existence of the Merkaba, where it comes from, what it is basically about, and the concept of using it for higher dimensional travel. When you get to this point in the advanced lessons, then I get even further into the fine points of how to use it. In the Middle Ages or the Renaissance, when they created perspective, you had to use your system of perception in order to add a dimension when you were looking at an object, okay? Well, if you're starting off with this star tetrahedron, but if we join together these two edges, here we go. I am now turning this Merkaba into an octahedron. Octo is 8, and this is a pyramid like the one that is in Egypt. I'm trying to make little dots along the back so you can see that there's a line going on back there. Pyramid of Egypt has a square base. So what I just did, I'm rearranging energy. We started off with one of these. One of these has 8 sides because it is 2 intersecting pyramids, and each pyramid has 4 sides. 4 plus 4 equals 8, all right? And I do this on the recorded lesson much more, to a much greater extent. So, Great Pyramid of Egypt. What I've got over here, I've got front side 1, left side 2, right side 3, back side 4. So I've still got 4, and then I put the same thing on the bottom. I have the equal and opposite, symmetrical opposite, and here this is ... These dots are actually in the back, ... in the back, and there you can see in a different color side 1, right? Side 2, side 3, and of course the back side behind the figure that we do not see, side 4. So we still have 8 sides, but we have rearranged them. No longer do we have a shape that is like this. Now we have a shape that is, maybe I'll make a slightly better drawing of it for you. It's an octahedron. And I do have a crystal that is shaped just like this, but it's very tiny, and I did not feel that it would really show up on camera very well. But an octahedron is shaped like that. It's 2 pyramids with the bases, the foundations together. Okay, this is how you travel interdimensionally. You essentially, when you envision your own Merkaba, you envision this, and that's like, the next step up. And then you envision the edges being joined together, and you are literally using your perception in order to rearrange the energy and put it into a higher dimensional space. So when you master that move, it means you are able to not only change timelines, visit different places. I'll tell you this, on YouTube, I see a lot of things that are about UFOs and things like that. A lot of them look like clank metal spaceships, like metal softball flying through the air. And those things I'm kind of like, I don't know, seems a little sketchy. When I see a YouTube video of a light vessel, like it's made of sparkling light, and it's in this shape, and I see it almost moving like in and out, almost like it turning itself inside and out, that's a real Merkaba. This is what you use for travel. You don't need to buy a metal spaceship. No, why would you? Why would you want to do that? You wouldn't want to. Well, maybe some people would want to do it if they didn't have the capacity to be able to cultivate themselves to this level. Cultivating yourself to this level is like saying you have become a mega marathoner. It's like, people who run 100 miles in a day. Like, if you can run 100 miles in a day, you don't need a car. You can run on down to the grocery store. You can do whatever you need to do. You're in the superhuman level. When you can travel interdimensionally like this, you do not need a metal spaceship. That's like training wheels for folks who don't have it together. And the other aspect of this is that this is, one individual Merkaba, but it is possible to combine your Merkaba with others and fly in the same way that geese fly in formation. So hold on 1 minute while I am bringing up some I got another picture that I just really want to show to you. And it's worth fiddling around in order to look for it. It's in here somewhere. Let's see if I've got it. Okay, that doesn't quite show what I'm looking for. Let me look one more time. It's worth it. I promise. I don't know if I'm going to find it. I'm so close. It's worth it. Keep with me, people. Maybe not. You can see him. No. Okay, maybe in another lesson. Oh, here we go. All right, but it's upside down. Yes, you can see it's a. There we go. It's a picture of my drawing table, but I will open it up so that you can see it even a little bit better. So this is a twin Merkabah. These are two people together. We've got one figure over here and one figure over here. They are both seated with their legs folded, and let's minimize it now so you can see it. Oh, I don't think you can see it on this picture, but anyway, you can see the toroid-shaped energy fields around them. I'll have to come up with a better picture. So sorry, guys. So sorry. Anyway, just minimize that out so that we're looking at what really matters here. Okay, so now let's talk about the flying rainbow lasagna, because I spent a lot of time talking about the Merkabah. Flying rainbow lasagna is an interdimensional portal that connects the singularity within you with any other singularity. All right? So this is special and important because when you really embrace the knowledge that you have a singularity within, like it's like you might know something like on an abstract level, like, oh yes, I'm the King of England, but you don't know the ramifications or the significance of that. If you actually find out the significance, like, wow, I'm the King of England, I should be able to eat as much ice cream as I want, that's what happens. Noelle has a question. Is there a connection between the Merkabah and the Star of David? Absolutely. Okay, and I realize I missed a question from Mike. Doing Noelle's question first. Is there a connection between the Merkabah and the Star of David? The answer is yes. So, okay, everyone needs to know that the Jewish religion and culture is an outgrowth or was heavily influenced by the Egyptian culture. The Israelites, before they became the Israelites, they were a wandering group of nomadic herders. They herded their animals, and when they could no longer live in the deserts, they had to move into the sedentary civilized culture of Egypt, and that is where they became disenfranchised, kind of second-class citizens. But when they were submerged in the ancient Egyptian culture, they became very influenced by it. This is why the Jewish culture that grew out of the Israelites that fled Egypt, they say Amen at the end of a prayer. And Amen is an ancient Egyptian word meaning God is pleased. And there are other aspects of the idea of like a resurrection that were heavily influenced by being submerged in the Egyptian culture, okay? And I have spoken a couple of times tonight about how the idea of the Merkabah is ancient information from Lemuria to Atlantis. Atlantis, go bye-bye, but the information from Atlantis was partially kept alive in various different little nooks. And the ancient Egyptian mystery schools were one of the nooks that held some important data, and the data was Merkabah. Merkabah, it comes from ancient Egyptian. It means light body vehicle. And the beings who eventually became the Israelites and eventually developed the Jewish religion, they were influenced by this shape. They recognized that it was a powerful shape, and they adopted it as a symbol of who they are as a culture. And this is just an aside, I could do a whole lecture about what's going on in, a whole biblical studies lecture, essentially, about the reason why the Israelites were exiled from Egypt is because they were being separated out, made distinct from the other levels of the population that didn't have the same capacities with their pineal gland. So the Israelites, they weren't Israelites yet. They were these nomadic herding people. They had a very good potential to be able to connect to hyperspace beings. So they were separated out genetically from the other culture by, an extraterrestrial presence that was mistaken as a deity, and that was written about in let's say, idolatrous terms. It's all been a misunderstanding that, I'm sorry if you have a Jewish background, but it is a misunderstanding who is being worshipped, that the being who led the Jews out of exile was a hyperspace being, but not the creator of all, and do not worship the wrong God. So anyway, yes, Merkabah is connected to the Star of David, is the short answer. And Mike had a question at the beginning of the class. I've heard the male Merkabah has that point to the left as a flat. I don't think that it is shaped differently. I think that it is positioned differently. So I experience the downward pointing pyramid as having a point that faces out in the heart, and the other pyramid as having a point that faces out behind my spine. But I presume from what the person on the comment box asked me that they experience it differently. So I would say this. It's like when you go to school and they ask you, like, pick up a pencil and write something, like, you have to figure out, does it feel more comfortable righty or lefty? Or like the first time you go snowboarding, like, do you put your right foot first or your left foot first? Like, you will have to figure out what works for you. This is body knowledge. This is why I don't tell you what to do with your body, because your body might do things differently or more comfortably or more effectively in a different way than my body. So I only tell you, like an artist, I pick up my paintbrush and I paint like this. I do this with my body. But you are, of course, encouraged to experiment with your body, and we have learner's permits, and so this is an appropriate time, in the planetary consciousness in order to be able to do this. So you can, and I would not say that there's a right or wrong, but that there is mindfulness. Like is there a right way and a wrong way to drive your car? This is a vehicle. It's just like your car. Well, we would say the wrong way to drive your car would be typing away on your computer and not paying attention, or, being impaired in some way, being distracted. That the right way to drive your car is to be focused and to be aware of what's going on around you. Well, the wrong way to drive your Merkabah is to be influenced by lower vibrational negative emotions. To be influenced by anger, hatred, fear, jealousy, envy, sorrow, grief. Think about that. If you're manifesting from that vibratory foundation, think about the things you're going to manifest. It's kind of like people who go in for revenge. They're like, I hate my ex-wife, I'm going to get her, and then they utilize those emotions, are very powerful emotions. Emotions put us into motion. So the desire for vengeance, or, to get ahead of someone else, or envy, looking at someone else and wanting what they have, these are all things that can motivate you, but I would not recommend being motivated by them in manifesting. Mike questions, when the Merkabah stops spinning, does it always stop at the point in a particular direction? I would say this, it doesn't stop spinning. It's always spinning, but the question is, what rate is it spinning at? Or it's like saying this, I have my iPad down here below the camera, you can't see it. It doesn't actually have an off button. And Steve Jobs used to joke about that, like about his philosophy. There's a pause button, there's not really an off button, but of course there is like a reboot button. Your Merkabah is very much like a computer. So you also have to be aware that unless you program in end limits, a program will continue to run. This is important to understand. Remember The Sorcerer's Apprentice from Fantasia? This is with Mickey Mouse, and he finds out that when the sorcerer's out, he can use magical powers to make magical buckets and mops that mop up all the floor so he doesn't have to work. The only problem is he doesn't know how to turn it off. And he gets endless buckets and mops, buckets and mops, buckets and mops. Off buttons are important. If you start your Merkaba going, it is important and wise to program in limits. So I will share with you some tips of the trade. Here's what I do when I am crafting my wishes, when I'm crafting my desires. I always put in a little bit of cosmic, interdimensional legalese. You know, like when they have a commercial, blah, blah, blah is so great. Then at the bottom of the screen it says, this offer not available in stores, may cause sudden death, you know, like be used with extreme caution. So I do that with my wishes. I will say, like if I were wishing for dessert, I wish for this flavor, I wish for this bowl, I wish for this day, and I'm also open to dealer's choice, and then I'll say something like, I ask this from the point of unconditional love, taking nothing from anyone else in a way that is good for all. Like these are, and even if you're not, you don't have to use the same exact language that I do, but putting that in there helps to direct the computer of the universe to really fulfilling what you are. You know, what to really fulfilling your requests. When we make requests, what we are really saying is, I feel uncomfortable, I'd like to be comfortable. It's like, you know, a baby. It's like, wah, wah, I'm hungry, or wah, I'm thirsty, or wah, I need a diaper change. It's like saying to the universe, Mom, I really need something. You know, like I need my bills to be paid, or I need my car to be fixed, or I need my body to be healed, or I need my friend's body to be healed. But think about this, like I've got a good example. I have a friend and he has a dog. It's a very large, loving dog, and it's, you know, ailing. It's got like some kind of a tumor or something like that. And I'm, you know, I just know this person and I care about them and I care about their dog. But it's like, should I get into my Merkaba and create a program and put a lot of energy into like, we gotta fix the dog and the dog's leg? Like, I have to ask what is the biggest priority in the world, and it might not be my friend's dog, you know? So it is essential when we are doing Merkaba work to say, what is my motivation? Because if I'm really coming from a place of unconditional love, I might say, you know something, this dog is like 14 years old and it has lived a good life, and this is, you know, what it needs to be going through. So what I'm trying to say is that when you reach the hyperspace perspective and you really are living at the level of unconditional love, you do not necessarily feel the need to like, dun 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 dun, be a superpower and like fly on in and save everything and save everyone. You really begin to say, well, what is really the best thing? You know, say you could wave your magic wand and be like, okay, dog, your tumor is magically gone. And then we just used a lot of energy. We just used, you know, a lot of magical restructuring of the universe in order to help that little dog. So does it mean that we didn't get to use that energy for something more important? Like for Fukushima, if I had $10 worth of magical, mystical energy, or if I had $10 worth of energy in my magic wand, would I want to spend it on my friend's dog, or should I spend it on Fukushima? And these are really the questions no one can answer for you. This is all about becoming a cosmic adult, beyond a cosmic adolescent. And when you begin to understand this, you understand, hey, there's all of these angels. There's, you know, I'm surrounded by angels. I've got 10,000 angels all around me. How come angels aren't always constantly intervening? How come there is anything in the world that is amiss or awry? We're all surrounded by 10,000 angels. How come we don't have all cancerous tumors gone, all bills paid, all accidents averted? Like that sounds like a perfect world. However, there is some higher wisdom in not intervening in on every occasion. So I won't go into it fully, but I will say that just like if you are a parent, you want to guard your offspring from disaster, but you want to still allow them their life's learning lessons. So in the first segment, I alluded to an experience that I had using my Merkaba where I just really wanted to manifest a pile of money in my lap right away. And, you know, I manifested that with comic literalness, but it was not money that was mine to spend and really was a little bit questionable to be in possession of, and something that I learned, something I have to be a lot more specific about the type of money. It's no use to have just a pile of money if you cannot spend it. It's like ill-gotten gains. So you have to be very specific with the universe. If you say to the universe, using your Merkaba, I want to be rich, you might be rich, but it might be done in such a comically literal and ironic sense that it doesn't actually give you the sense of fulfillment and happiness that you're going for. So, the sense of fulfillment and happiness that you're going for, that is information that goes in the receptive, downward pointing pyramid that says, these are the types of feelings that I'm looking for. And then the upward pointing pyramid has very specific information associated with it, okay? And I was going to get onto more of the flying rainbow lasagna as a different type of, let's say, interdimensional tool. So the flying rainbow lasagna has a singularity at 2 different nodes, up here and down here. I know that I have a singularity inside of me. Do you know why? Because I have chakras. You know what? All of you guys have chakras too. Therefore, you all have a singularity or several inside of you. And anything that has this chakra or torus shape, I don't have my torus on here, but I had it up there before, such as Earth, the planet. The planet has a singularity at its center, at its core. Same thing with the sun. The sun has a singularity at its core. Our galaxy has a supermassive black hole, which has a singularity at its center, at its core. All of these things have singularities. And the idea of the singularity is that it is single. There is only one of it. So it's like saying we each have individual doorways to the same room. And once you understand that and you really embody that, you become able to meld yourself with anything else. The flying rainbow lasagna is all about a question about the chakra singularities. My questions are the chakra singularities at a doorway of a certain density level. It's a very interesting question. I would say I'm not sure how to answer that. There are singularities inside of every chakra. And so, you have 7 chakras and you have many, many sub-chakras. And each chakra shape, has a central singularity. So you do have that. But the singularity itself does not have a density or a flavor. It's everything, it's the totality, so it does not have an adjective to describe it other than infinity. So it's like saying each one of your chakras has a doorway to infinity, but they might be differently sized or shaped doors, but they all go to the same infinity. Noelle questions, so it's multidimensional. Yes, it is absolutely multidimensional. Every single dimension has a doorway to infinity. Infinity is the source and the destination, and there are an infinite number of ways of getting there. So each one of us has a doorway. I'll tell you this, every single cell in your cellular body has a singularity in its nucleus. It is part of your DNA. It is part of the library of consciousness. It wouldn't be able to exist. Every single atom that your cells are made of has a singularity at its center. If I wanted to, I could mentally pinpoint one particular atom and I could say, I am now going to connect the singularity that is within me at this end with the singularity that is within that particular atom at that end. And I could become one with that seemingly external but really interior aspect of self. What is the significance of this? Like I told you, Merkaba, you can use that as a vessel for hyperspace travel. What is the significance of this? What does it mean if I can connect my singularity to the earth? or my singularity to the sun or to any star. What does that mean? Well, when we get into interdimensional ethics, unconditional love states that I do not have to control others because others are on their own journey of consciousness. But unconditional love states that I am the captain of my own vessel. Yo no soy marinero, soy capitán, right? Like, I am not a sailor, I am a captain. I am the captain of my own vessel. So, none of you are able to tell Aurora what to do, and I am not allowed to tell Mike, Noel, Lucy, or anyone else what to do. But let's say I am able to expand my definition of self beyond Aurora. What if I can expand my definition of self to be every living thing on the planet and the planet itself? Then I become able to say, well, the entire planet is me, and it is unconditionally loving for me to be in control of what I am doing, on a totality, on a planetary level. And if you can expand even further to the level of the sun, then you can say, when your consciousness is connected to the singularity in the sun, that everything that is going on in the solar system is now under your penumbra. It is now part of you, because I explained how the sun is an emanator of consciousness and of experience. So we're all little tiny crumbs of the sun. The sun is the big cake. We're little tiny, tiny, tiny crumbs. What if we can identify with the cake that we came from? Then all of a sudden, our responsibility can expand. All of a sudden, we can say, wow, I'm dreaming this whole entire dream, including the part of the dream where I thought I was just a little tiny crumb, but I'm actually a giant cake. And then you can begin taking responsibility. I see that there is another question down in chat. Can I connect to the sun singularity without going outside? Oh my goodness, yes. Yes, you definitely can. We are reaching into levels of mental exploration now that are not connected to direct line of sight. So for example, I do not have to be physically sitting with my behind on the surface of the earth in order to connect with the earth. In fact, when I create my Merkaba pyramid and I create my downward pointing pyramid, I envision that that point goes all the way to the core of the planet. But I do not actually have to get into a drilling machine and drive to the core and physically put my behind on the core because it is too impractical for so many reasons. All of this is mental power, mental journey, mental envisioning. Right now, I'm at the level with sun gazing where I need for it to be a sunny day. I really need to see the sun and really feel it on my forehead for that to come in. But I know that with enough practice and becoming more adept, eventually I won't have to have line of sight. Eventually I will be able to connect with the sun in a wireless sense. Like we all now take for granted, hey, this is a phone, there's no wires, it doesn't have to plug in anywhere. This is preparing our consciousness for wireless connectivity. Because again, like I will tell you, I connect with the great galactic central sun all the time. I do not have to be physically looking at the Milky Way in the sky, and in truth, during the day, I have no idea which direction I would point to in order to even know like where the galactic center is. I don't know where it would be, but I can feel it internally, and I connect one half of my flying rainbow lasagna to me, and one half to what is in the great galactic center. Now this is some pretty amazing crossover with science. I'll do a little bit of drawing, make a little bit of space back here in the back room. So science understands that Earth has a magnetic field. Let's draw it in a color you can see. So here's green planet, and then here's Earth's magnetic field out like this. And now let's draw the sun, like here's the giant face of the sun, with rays shooting off the sun. And the sun also has a very, very, very big magnetic field that's so big that it goes off the edges and I can't even draw it, it's so big. But what science is finding is that there are very interesting places where the sun's magnetic field and the Earth's magnetic field meet and cross over. And they make these little, I'm gonna make it a totally different color so that you can see, how about like purple? They make these crossing points where the two fields kind of like come together, and it looks like wavering curtains. It's all energy flowing, but they make these very interesting crossing points. And at those points, science and NASA has begun to label them as portals, that they are portals or doorways, and that energy can travel. Oops, I'm very sorry, I'm just taking care of my thing. That energy can travel between the earth and the sun through these doorways. So instead of energy having to say, I'm now leaving the surface of the planet, and you see this line heading out towards the sun, now I'm energy that is on the sun. Instead of having to do that, energy can leave the planet, go to one of these portals, and then be transported, zip, directly to the sun without having to go across the whole 93 million miles. We are talking about also not having to transport your physical energy, but being able to transport your consciousness. So we also have to begin to make that sophisticated distinction when we're talking about our Merkaba and traveling with our light body. So to give you an example, when I was using my Merkaba in my backyard, and when I lived in Woodstock, I was doing the meditation. I was sitting in a lovely, comfortable chair, and a friend of mine came over to see me, looked his head out the backyard, looked right at me, looked across the rest of the yard, turned around and went back in. And they didn't want him to leave, so I broke my meditation. I said, hey, wait, come back. And they turned around and they were like, well, I totally didn't see you there. That's right, they totally didn't perceive me there because I was actually traveling somewhere else. So while I'm just saving this lesson, here we go. And I'll tell you the rest of the story while that's saving. I was traveling interdimensionally. They did not perceive my physical form with their flesh eyes. We can interpret that in many ways. You can interpret that to say that there was a barrier between us. That was like an energetic barrier. You know, the same way that there's like waves of heat that come off of hot pavement and they make kind of like a disturbance in the atmosphere and it's hard to see through that. That's what the Merkaba energy field can be like at times. It can create, a vortex of energy around you that essentially obscures the person that is inside of it. So again, if you watch some of these videos of UFOs that are actually Merkabas, you might not know that there's a person inside of there because it is this rotating energy field that is moving in such a way as to not be able to see that. Another way of interpreting this is to say that I was not physically present on that timeline where my friend was, that I was in an indeterminate state, or perhaps on another timeline. Like, when the dice are rolling, they're neither here nor there. And I really feel that I was in a state of quantum indeterminacy. And this is why I say that using that final maneuver to turn your star tetrahedron into an octahedron is like, flying across the country. It's like flying across the country. You're going to another dimension. Be prepared. You don't, like in Harry Potter, you don't start using the flu network until you're in advanced magics, you don't do that as a freshman. You have to know where you're going. You have to be able to withstand the difficulties, and you have to know how to land. This is important. When you take flying lessons, you have to learn how to take off. You have to learn how to land. So that's a pretty important part of it. If I tell you like, okay guys, because you can tell that I'm hyper responsible. I'm very responsible. I want to make sure that people are, and I'm going to turn this off because my battery is about to go. I'm quite responsible, and I want to make sure that as I'm giving these lessons, that the information is not taken out of context and that is used for the highest good. This is actually the rationale for why I have people formally enroll instead of, like I do allow people to just audit the class and take the, the lessons, the webinars that they wish. I really have people enroll because it's kind of like saying, okay, you checked the I agree button at the bottom of your screen, and now you agree that you're learning these things and that you're going to apply them in the right way. Because there's a lot of nefarious people in the world, and some people have found access to this information and they used it in order to try to manipulate or control others, or use it, in lower vibrational terms. So we are here using this. This is about being an artist of reality and using it in higher vibrational terms. There was a question. can they become physical here when they are traveling in their Merkaba? Yes, that is the equivalent of learning how to land. That is the equivalent of saying I get in my vehicle, my car or my spaceship or my aeroplane or whatever, and I fly somewhere, but then when I get to my destination, I have to learn how to either find a parking space or land my vessel or get into the next dimension. So this, you don't want to get stuck in the in-between world. You want to make sure that you get to where you're supposed to go. How about this? Let's say that you begin, like I'm a being here and I'm starting to go through another dimension. You don't want to materialize when you're halfway through and then be like, wow, my torso is stuck in a wall, or, my leg is stuck in the ceiling. The story of the Philadelphia experiment, if you are familiar with this is interesting stuff. And this is from the early 1900s, and I would really recommend, if this story intrigues you, do some independent research, the Philadelphia experiment. It was an experiment on U.S. naval vessels to see if they could be made invisible or unable to be perceived by other beings. And so this was during the time of Tesla. And it is said that the United States government used some of the techniques that Tesla was investigating in terms of energy generation and energy dissemination in order to try to make a vessel go invisible. And what happened was, because Tesla was experimenting with what happens when you use huge amounts of energy. And you can indeed shift dimensions and create dimensional rifts when you use huge amounts of energy, okay? And this is also one of the secrets, because Tesla was reincarnated from ages ago in Atlantis, and he knew all about the things that had been done that destabilized the crust and the things that had been done using Earth's magnetic field that were against humanity. And in his lifetime as Tesla, he was determined not to have his things used in the wrong way. But nonetheless, the Navy took some of his energy experiments and weapons and applied it to a ship. The ship was rendered invisible for a certain amount, or non-perceptible for a certain amount of time, because it had shifted into another dimension. When it shifted back into this dimension, the crew members, some of them were materialized half in the wall or half in the floor. They obviously did not survive. They died horrible deaths because their bodies were halfway through when they got, materialized again. This, something, like if you're on the Starship Enterprise and you say, beam me up, Scotty, they're like super careful about the way they do it. They make sure that your molecules get rearranged in the right order and that you're not going to materialize into some bulkhead or a steel plate. Mike asks, was there any positive benefit from the Philadelphia experiment? It was an experiment. It led to information. There were a lot of experiments that were going on at that time in the early 1900s with all the hubris that humanity has, when humanity is like, this is the new century. Like, you always love it. Like at the beginning of the 20th century, at the beginning of the 21st century, it's always like, we know everything. We're ready to conquer the world. So at the beginning of the 1900s, they were like, we know everything and we're ready to conquer the world through science. Let's do experiments. Meanwhile, they didn't understand that they were dealing with forces that were far greater than they could imagine, and that there were inhabitants out there, that you weren't just playing around in an empty ocean, that you were actually connecting to a huge world full of other beings. Noel says, I am perceiving the term singularity as a reminder that we are all one singular, multidimensional, and multifaceted entity. That is a beautiful statement, and that is absolutely correct. This is understanding that we all come from the source of consciousness, and we all are returning to the source of consciousness. And the real power in the world does not come from having power over others. It doesn't come from me having a gun and saying, I'm going to point this gun at you, you better do what I want or else. Real power comes from understanding that all of you are me. You know something? All of you guys are me. Everyone in this whole planet is me. Everyone in this whole galaxy is me. And I like to be treat other aspects of me the way I like to be treated. So I don't like to be told what to do. I like to be given freedom and sovereignty to learn my own lessons. I do that for other aspects of me as well. That's why I don't say to any one of you, paint paintings like this, or use your Merkaba like this, or, be exactly like me. I don't want you to be exactly like me. What I want is for each person to be in touch with their own innate divine connection and not listen to an external authority figure. Even though I am technically an external authority figure telling you not to listen to an external authority figure, please only listen to me in the sense that you do what I say and be independent. And that's also how you can tell the litmus test of hyperdimensional beings, who you're going to talk with when you become telepathic. If they're trying to control you and keep you less than empowered, if they want to keep you disenfranchised, treat you like a child, condescend to you, those are not beings that you wish to be a part of. You wish to be it's just like, who would you want as your parents? Would you want parents who always tell you you're just a little piece of shit and you'll never amount to anything and you'll always need me? Or do you want parents who say, you are filled with talents and skills, and I am going to give you the life experiences to cultivate them so that you can eventually be in charge of your own life? That's what we want. That's what I want. And so we have these different extra-dimensional entities that are absolutely cultivating consciousness on Earth. And they are also giving people the opportunity to make choices, not to have their lives dictated to them. So Mike's question is about telepathy. He asks, is telepathy with feelings connected to it? Very good question. I've not ever heard the use of the word telepathy, but that's a nice mashup of it. My experience of telepathy is that there's many different layers. On the basic layer, you can get words. Like if I just sent the word to you, and I think I use this as an example, watch, but you don't know. What exactly am I referring to? Am I saying something about a watch on your arm? Am I saying you should watch something with your eye? Am I telling you watch out for something? It doesn't have connotations or context attached to it, so it becomes essentially meaningless. And this is from my experience of telepathic connection with my spirit guides. Sometimes I'll get a one word from them and I'll say to them, that is not meaningful communication because I have no context for that. And I just stay really neutral. I don't get mad. I don't get you should shut up because you're not giving me information. Because there's probably some attachment, a attachment on an email that didn't come through. The attachment is the extra layer of context, which is often subtext. And we interpret that through our third eye. In biological terms, we interpret it through our temporal lobe and also parts of our frontal lobe. And it has to do with semiotics. Semiotics is the study of signs and symbols. So everything is a symbol. If I show you a letter, the letter L is a symbol. The number 8 is a symbol. In itself, it is an abstraction. Every word is an empty abstraction. It is when we imbue it with meaning through context and energy or a feeling that it has more and it becomes more multidimensional. So in being telepathic, when you send a message to someone, you have to send not merely the abstract symbol, but the way in which you want that symbol to be interpreted. And that's part of the artistry of it. When I paint a painting, I am not using words like this, but I am speaking, and I want my audience to interpret it in a certain way. So I understand the language. Something? Some colors are happy colors, some colors are sad colors. If I wanted to paint a sad painting, I'd have to buy some special paint for it, but I would use olive drab and rusty brown and gross, corroded looking colors. I wouldn't use bright, vibrant colors like this, which are considered happy colors. Or, when I use pastels or something like that, that it is a softer, more muted color. It is considered more gentle, having a more gentle energy. These are just examples. Here's another example. When you play the piano, you can play the piano, you can jab a note and have it sound very hard and harsh, or you can caress a note and press it very gently and have it be very soft and gentle. And it's the same exact note, it's the same exact A or C or whatever, but it is the way that you have used the instrument to make the note that gives it that tone. Got a question from, that didn't come through. The private question did not come through, so maybe you can try again. Noelle asks, there's another question from Lucy above my statement. There we go. The question that, maybe that's what it is, MacBook. Do you think this is what happened to the missing plane recently? Okay, this is a really, really excellent question. I think that what happened with the missing plane, both the one that went missing over Malaysia and then the one that got shot down over Ukraine, is manipulation of reality, but not in an esoteric sense. It's kind of like when David Blaine or one of these sleight of hand, quote unquote, magicians, they say, look, here's an object. Look, now it's disappeared. Like, they didn't really make it disappear in another dimension. They really just made it disappear using smoke and mirrors. I think that is very similar to what's going on. And I say that because I think that there is so much government, let's say, nefarious plotting in terms of incepting wars, manipulating the media, manipulating mass consciousness, that when the plane went missing, I immediately presumed human foul play. I did not presume that this was a spiritual experience or an interdimensional experience or anything like the Bermuda Triangle or anything like that. And then when a very similar plane was shot down over the Ukraine in an attempt to incite a war with Russia, it seemed to me that this is a political ploy. And it doesn't take, here's the difference. To say that something is a magical event, it cannot be explained by simple machines. However, we all know that the United States government, aspects of the secret United States government and the United States military, they have the capacity to take control of every single commercial airliner. They can remote control every plane. They can do this now since 9/11 because they want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Ha ha ha. I can say so many things about that. But the whole point is the technology exists, is already implanted in planes to take control of them. And we already have evidence of, the shadow government in the United States doing things like taking control of commercial, jets filled with passengers with no care for the safety of those people or what their citizenship is or anything like that. It is really using humans as pawns in the very worst way. So I interpret that whole situation as sleight of hand by earthly governments in a desire to control public opinion through the mainstream media and incept a violent conflict in Ukraine with Russia. Cool, good questions. Good question coming up. There's another question. Are the recent beheadings real? I'll tell you what I know from my direct perception is that people actually were killed. However, what's not real is the people who are doing it. So our government and mainstream media are saying that ISIS are these Islamic or whatever Middle Eastern extremists. However, they are actually elements of our own rogue government, the non-elected shadow government. It's called special forces, or it's called, it is secret aspects of the military. They do not answer to anyone. They're actually controlled by non-terrestrial, non-humanoid beings who don't have good intentions for you at all. And I know this on a deep level, and then I find clues in reality. So the recent beheadings were said to be done by ISIS, and this ISIS community somehow has access to the same Toyota trucks that Special Forces has access to. All right, and there are these special retrofitted trucks so that you can put big giant machine guns on them and everything like that. So this is the first thing, that surplus United States military equipment is currently in the hands of ISIS. And then ISIS recently released one of these videos that's meant to be like a scare video, and it's kind of set up like a Hollywood movie trailer, saying coming soon to a theater near you, be afraid, be very afraid. And it's quite sophisticated in its editing, and it seems to me that this is not something that a band of unsophisticated desert dwelling terrorist cell members would come up with. It's like a sophisticated usage of manipulation of the media. It involves technology and understanding of culture that is not something that just, some lone jihadist would find. And also, there's pictures of these ISIS people. Their faces are obscured, but they have tattoos that are United States military. So there's a lot of sloppiness. If you look, there's a lot of clues that tell you exactly who ISIS is. And again, it is the idea to control public opinion to make it seem, quote unquote, acceptable to start another military campaign. I find humor in the word ISIS as it relates to Egyptian deities. None of this is by accident. How about this? The NSA spying program that was called PRISM, like that makes a rainbow. None of this is by accident. Really, the hidden government, like the secret shadow government that is behind our own government and every government, they have very sophisticated psychics that work for them. I wouldn't work for them ever, it's quite clear, but they headhunt. Like, you might get a knock on your door one day, like, oh, we heard you could bend a spoon, come work for us, right? They are looking for remote viewers and people who have telepathy and telekinesis. It's like being in the military, except you're in the psychic military. So they utilize these people in order to see what's going on, and then they try to use it for their own advantage. So the reason why PRISM was named that, and it was an oppressive use of the rainbow. It wasn't a freedom-loving use of the rainbow. And this is done on many levels. It is the co-opting of symbols in order to take something that you have a positive association with and turn it negative. So Isis was a beautiful goddess associated with Osiris. She's the Egyptian version of Mary Magdalene, as opposed, like Isis plus Osiris. Isis is to Osiris as Mary Magdalene is to Jesus. And there's wonderful parallels in the two stories and the mythologies. It's very clear to me that this is more manufactured news and manufactured for the purpose of manipulation. It's gotten to the point where I do not really even look at the news because I recognize that I do not want to add energy or value to it, and that at best it is only telling me what lies they wish for me to perceive. So I get my real news from psychic perception. I get my real news from what I know in my heart. Of course, local news, I read about local forest fires in the area where I live or something like that. But even that, I'm really telling everyone that it is more essential than ever to trust your innate guidance, trust your inner connection to wisdom, and that, oh my goodness, really don't listen to things like, the latest updates from David Wilcox, the latest updates, the latest channels, the latest downloads, all of those things. And Nasara, the idea that there is a giant pile of gold that is waiting to be distributed to all of the poor disenfranchised people in the world, is a bunch of bunk. It has been used as a tool to disenfranchise you and make you feel like, oh, any day I'm going to get that money come to me. And meanwhile, all it means is that you haven't created your own sources of abundance or art projects or collaborated with others. Well, hello and welcome to the person who just popped on in. We are almost at and popped on out. And we are almost at the end. Yes, it's 7:30. I would love to take some more questions and then wrap it up by 7:45. Let's see what we've got here. Do I think President Obama is resisting the shadow government by delaying action against ISIS? I think that President Obama is no longer in control of his faculties. I think that the person that we elected, who had a humanoid face and appeared to be human, is now no longer really what I would classify as human. Because you can let go of who you are to the point where something else is acting through you so much that you are not even human any longer. So I really see him as a person who has voluntarily or not voluntarily had his soul snatched or overpowered. Sometimes, I'm a walk-in. I didn't overpower the previous occupant of this body, but it is possible for beings to do that. It's like having an intruder break into your house. It's not the same as having a house guest. So there, in my opinion, is an intruder in Obama's house. And it didn't really matter. I mean, it mattered who we elected. I think that McCain and the Republicans would have been far, far worse. Yeah, Noel says he does seem rather vacant. The way that they do mind control, sometimes they do it through pharmaceutical drugs, sometimes they do it through surgery, sometimes they do it through, implanting actual mechanical devices, sometimes they do it through rituals. This is, again, things that happen at higher levels of the government that very few people recognize or admit to, but that are being done nonetheless. There's a lot more expose work that's being done about rituals in the British government. Things like pedophile rings, use of ritual sacrifice, inappropriate sexual sacrifice. So those things are coming to light in that country, and one day they will come to light in this country too. Question from Mike. Are there people trying to minimize this kind of manipulation? Of course. Just like there are cops or law enforcement on the physical plane, there's law enforcement on the non-physical plane. They are enforcing the non-physical laws. So this is important information for each one of you. Each one of you can call upon that law enforcement. If you ever find that you're being attacked by demons or that you're having psychic attack, you can call a cop. You can say, I know my rights, I know that I'm a sovereign being, I know that this is not allowed. And actually, I encourage you to do so. And I even encourage you to use your Merkaba, and that's like becoming a vigilante. Mike says that he did that once, and the bad guy disappeared. It's absolutely apt. I will just give one more little anecdote at the end of this. Saw a video that was taken on a subway, and it was of a bully, and the bully was the most unlikely candidate. A little, short, young Asian woman, but you don't know that at first. She's wearing kind of like a scarf. It looks like it's wintertime because everyone's wearing heavy jackets. So she's got like a scarf across her mouth, and she's standing up, and she's talking to a seated rider who's like this young blonde woman, and she's totally in her face saying the most ridiculous things, and the young woman, she's just like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. But she doesn't actually say like, get out of my face, or, shut the F up, or anything like that. She's just kind of like totally thinking that it's the most bizarre thing, but she's just very neutral. And then along comes an extremely tall woman of African descent, and she is like, you want to bully someone? Bully me. And all of a sudden, she tears off the mask of the bully, and it was amazing how the bully's behavior changed. She was like, her voice changed. She became like, I'm soft and gentle. She was like, I don't want to bully anyone. And the large black woman was like, no, really, you want to start a fight with someone? Start a fight with me. Come on. And she really kicked her around a bit. And I witnessed an entire change in the bully's energy, and eventually she's ejected from the train. And I bring this up only in order to illustrate the point that with these lower vibrational negative entities, they do exactly the same thing as what the girl on the train did, because they were acting through her. The first thing is they won't be overt. They usually disguise themselves. They act around the back. They'll hardly ever attack you from the front. They'll attack you around the side. And as soon as you unmask them, they change. They derive their power from either being masked or being anonymous or being unperceived. So as soon as you perceive these demonic elements and you call them out, you're like, oh, you're a fucking demon. Then their energy completely changes and shifts. And the other thing that really changes them is when you school them. And that's when a bigger person comes along. So you can think of these higher dimensional cops like that big, wonderful, proud protector who was like, you want a piece of someone? Why don't you take a piece of me? And guess what? I have certainly gotten to the point in my inner development where I now am more at that level. I am not the shrinking victim. I'm not the neutral being. I am much more of a protector and a warrior. However, I usually do not come to other people's protection. I usually am busy protecting myself. And that's the whole point, is that we are each in a war, and we each have have to protect ourselves. However, it is always appropriate to call upon higher dimensional beings. This is like basically calling upon angels, calling upon divine guides, calling upon ascended masters. And I'll leave you with one other trick. So you can call the cops, and you can also call ascended masters, and you can say essentially, a lower vibrational negative aspect of yourself is acting up and you need to spank it. Because every single demon is a little emanation from a true ascended master. And it's running around making problems because it really wants to get spanked and be resolved. And when all of those demons are resolved, that is when we have unity consciousness. And we are heading there imminently, like we are really there. Whenever demons come and attack me, I'm so happy to send them to the great galactic central sun. That's the equivalent of ejecting the bully from the train. When she got thrown off the train, it's like, you're out of here. Well, I take these attackers, these psychic attackers, and I take them and lead them into the great galactic central sun, and that's like being ejected. They are not in their same position that they were in before. Some of these bullies, these interdimensional bullies, have been on their little pedestal shooting at other people for thousands or millions of years. All you have to do is tear off their mask and kick them off the train. And that's, sending them back to the great galactic central sun, where essentially they have a bath of solar consciousness, a bath of pure love that washes away everything that's not true, and all of the things that motivate a person to be a bully and to feed off of others. They're all just distortions. They're shadows and things that aren't really true. So the person just basically looks down and realizes like, wow, everything about me is fake. Nothing about me is real, and I disappear. And that their spark of consciousness remains, and their spark of consciousness gets to have a chance to live in a different and better way. So if I got to open it up to questions, comments, I'm going to stop the recording.